Before I start talking, I have to show you guys this t-shirt because it is so cool. You can see the back. Hopefully you can see it. It's got Dofi. If you're curious where I get any of these t-shirts, because I wear a lot of these One Piece t-shirts, I get them from JJ's. Obviously not sponsored. I mean, that would be pretty cool, but no. If you do like any of them, go check out JJ's, because surprisingly, they've got a lot of good licensed stuff. I've just finished the first half of the Dressrosa arc, so everything before all of the final battles, and I have a lot of thoughts on it, so let's get into it. Although each arc is set on a new island and they have new rules each time that they get on that island, I feel like Dressrosa is just completely different from the other arcs. It's very lively, upbeat with the Spanish Latin inspired aesthetic. Plus the island just seems massive. This was just like a complete 180 shift from the energy of Punk Hazard. And I really think that this is because there are these big toys that are just walking around like everyday civilians. There are humans interacting with them like it's a normal part of their daily life. At the start, I thought, okay, this is a fun arc with these like magical talking toys and it's going to be like a bit of a fun one. But then they dropped the detail that the people don't remember who these toys used to be. That was the first little glimpse that something was definitely off on this island. I mean, of course there is, right? We're watching One Piece and Doflamingo is involved. As we all know, this arc is just, it's massive. It's totaling like, I think 118 episodes. So naturally all of the crew split up into, I guess, their own little mini arcs, like 8 pretty much mini arcs that are going around, but they all then go into the main storyline. They all make an impact on the main story. Within these little story arcs, you've got Zoro, who spends so much time chasing this thief around who stole his sword. Then you've got Sanji, who has entered his like ultimate romantic telenovela dream and falls in love with a woman named Violet. Then you've got Robin, who ends up becoming some sort of mum to these Tontattas. Then you got Frankie, who is getting tangled up in some sort of toy factory mystery, as well as the Tontattas. Usopp is becoming some sort of savior. Then there's Luffy, who is undercover at the Colosseum trying to win the flame fruit that Ace once had. And then there's Law, who is in the middle of executing his own kind of revenge plan. Plus the other Straw Hats, which they kind of venture off in the middle of the arc as well. Actually, no, maybe 1/4 of the way they venture off on their own and we don't really see them again. Those who end up on that ship and we just don't see them again for the rest of the arc is Brook, Nami, Sanji ends up being on there, and Chopper and Monosuke. So we don't end up seeing them for like pretty much the whole rest of the trip. And I think because they're on the way to Zhao. Now let's talk about the absolutely menacing Doflamingo. Even when he is not on the screen, his presence is still so strong. Every citizen is basically worshipping him, but I knew that something just like wasn't right with the way that they were doing this. From what I saw of Dofi up until this point, which he was introduced near the start actually of One Piece. So up until this point, I expected him to have some sort of like totalitarian rule over the people, and the people were living in poverty and he was taking all of the riches for himself. But from the first introduction, it looked like an island where everyone was thriving. Because of all this, I just knew that there was something dark brewing beneath the surface and that Dofi was fooling everyone into thinking that he was some kind of great leader. When they revealed that him stepping down from being a warlord turned out to be this one massive lie and that he faked out basically the entire world's government and the media, it revealed this deeper side of Doflamingo's influence where he isn't just strong, but he's also very well-connected, political, conniving, and also manipulative. I feel like he's a type of villain that hasn't been explored in One Piece yet, and I think that's what makes him so interesting. Something that really stands out to me about Doflamingo is his devil fruit power. With those strings, he can literally control people, their bodies, and their actions. It feels pretty symbolic. Doflamingo is this master manipulator who has built himself into a major power player with these really deep running connections, even within the world's government. He is literally pulling the strings behind the scenes to push his own agenda forward. It's almost like a real life reflection of power structures where influential people are using their power to stay on top. They're forming these strategic alliances and they are also pulling the strings at the right time to accomplish their own goals. I think that his evil nature is really showcased when they reveal what happened with King Riku and why the people actually do worship him. He manipulated King Riku at the start and then controlled him with his strings to make him slaughter his own people. I mean, if you were a citizen in that country, on that island, and you saw your king slaughtering your family, of course you're going to think differently of the king. And then Doflamingo comes in, swoops in, he saves the day. You're going to idolize him because you think that he saved your life and your family's life. This was horrific to watch. I just couldn't imagine having done something like that and having to live the rest of your life knowing that you've done that, even though it wasn't even your fault. Like, you're not at fault at all, but you would probably feel guilty for the rest of your life thinking that it was your fault. So I feel like all of those aspects just showcase Dofi as this evil mastermind, and I'm interested to see how his character will develop and to see a bit of his backstory and how he turned out this way, like what made him like this. Pretty early on, Luffy enters a tournament at the Colosseum after finding out that the prize is Ace's Miramera no Mi fruit. And it's revealed that once a devil fruit user passes away, their fruit is then just randomly appears somewhere in the world to be eaten again. Luffy has to enter under a fake name, Lucy, because obviously, you know, we can't have anyone knowing that he's there. And it is absolutely hilarious because he seriously struggles to blend in, and it will just like slip up every now and then that he's Luffy. And then I guess it's revealed later on from Chinjiao when he comes up because of his beef with Garp, and he recognizes Luffy. And then Cavendish and Bartolomeo both find out that he's now Luffy. To be honest, I couldn't really get into the Colosseum fights. I've never really enjoyed tournament-style fighting in anime, but I did like how they introduced a lot of new characters that would become very important later on, like Cavendish, who is made out to be this pretty-faced prince, but he's like super, super dramatic, which is hilarious throughout. Although his alter ego, Hakuba, is actually terrifying, but it makes him this interesting character because one personality is beautiful and craves attention, and then the other is this like demonic looking creature. Bellamy also makes a surprise comeback, and in the true fashion of One Piece, I just did not like Bellamy at the start, but now he's growing on me. I don't know how Oda does it, but yeah, his development it's really showing through, and also the fact that Luffy sees him as a friend. How could I not start liking him? Then there's Rebecca, who wears this really like super tough, full coverage armor that just would 100% block and prevent any sort of attack on her body. It's such a great costume design. Anyway, she has a really emotional backstory, and I'll go a bit more into it later. Then you've got all these weird fighters with some bizarre powers, a giant fishman, veterans from other seas, and I cannot for the life of me pronounce his family name. I really try. I need to look up pronunciation. Don Quixote. I'm just going to call him Dofi's family. Yeah, we're sticking with Dofi. But his family spies are also there, like Diamante. Now, I have to talk about Bartolomeo separately, aka Rooster, because he became one of my favorite characters introduced. At first, you think he's some like insane, chaotic, just extremely rude person. But then it's revealed that he is a massive fanboy of the Straw Hats, and his whole persona changes. Every time Luffy does something even remotely cool, Rooster looks at him like he's about to pass out. And then every time he interacts with any of the other Straw Hats, it's like his dream has finally come true and he is ascending to heaven. Not only does this make him a top tier comedic character, but also very relatable. He just embodies exactly how I would feel and probably act if I met one of the Straw Hats, and just merely being in their presence. That is the epitome of how I would feel. This sort of leads into Rebecca's backstory. In the flashbacks of the past, we see that when she was young, she lived in a cottage with her mum when this war broke out, and all of a sudden people wanted to kill her and her mum. Then this toy soldier enters the scene, fighting off these people, allowing them to escape and to hide. But When her mum leaves to try and find food for them, the toy soldier returns with her lifeless mum in his hands, saying that he couldn't save her. We also see montages of the toy soldier taking it upon himself to raise Rebecca and to teach her how to fight. Later on, we learn that the toy soldier is actually Rebecca's dad, which I guessed pretty early on. I mean, why would this toy soldier be putting in so much effort to protect this little girl and to raise her? Sure, maybe like he grew attached to her, but like, yeah, I figured that was the case. Then later on, we find out that the toy soldier is actually Kyros as well, who there is a statue of this Kyros character up in the Colosseum, and he's known to be this crazy warrior who won every single battle that he fought, hundreds of battles, but he's made out to be sort of like a myth because, of course, people can't remember the humans that the toys had become. They have no recollection of them, so there's no way for them to remember Kyros. That part of it I didn't guess, but it's a pretty crazy revelation that's who he is, that's who the toy soldier is. Her story at this point, though, is so heartbreaking, and I can't wait to see the moment, or hopefully the moment, that she reunites with her dad. Rebecca is also King Riku's granddaughter. So there's so many just connections that all are starting to come together in the first half, and we see why King Riku took Kyros in and how he was like this lost boy that was fighting all the time, and then King Riku kind of trained him and he developed into this man that he is today. At this point, I really like Rebecca. I think that she shows a lot of humility and she looks to be quite actually strong and a good fighter, and the fact that she just dodges everyone so that she doesn't hurt anyone shows how she has a lot of empathy and humility. So I do really like that in her character. During all of the Colosseum fighting, we also have a major character reintroduced, which is Sabo. Unfortunately, I already knew he was coming back and that he would somehow get the Flame fruit because of opening all the One Piece trading cards, but I didn't know how he would get it. And with their reunion, Luffy took so long to figure out it was him. I mean, I guess it had been over a decade, I think, since he'd seen him. But like, come on, Luffy, how could you not recognize him? And even his hat straight away. Anyway, their reunion was so special, and I love that Sabo was the one to get the Flame fruit, and also that he's the chief of staff of the Revolutionary Army. I'm super curious as to where he's been, like what he's been up to, how he even became a part of the army, and why he hasn't even tried to find or locate Luffy this whole time. So I'm sure I'll be talking about that a lot more in part 2. I also just can't wait until him and Luffy can catch up with each other, hopefully at the end. But I just wish that Ace could be there and they could just all reunite. That would have been really special. But yeah, unfortunately not. One aspect I have to mention of this arc is Law and Luffy's team up. I really love how Law is kind of the center of this arc, where he's, you see his plans, his motives, his history with Doflamingo. It adds this new dimension to the story. And it just brings me so much joy, especially from Punk Hazard onwards, seeing Luffy and Law react, because they are just polar opposites in their personality. Law is very strategic, he's serious, he's like, we got to get the job done. Whereas Luffy is just chaotic, he's doing things spontaneously, and he's just there to have a good time. And I love seeing those little scenes that they have where Law will be like, Luffy, like, we got to stick to this plan, we got to do this. And then Luffy just goes off on his tangent. But I feel like the fact that they are opposites and they bring different things to the table is why they work so well as a team. I also find it hilarious how across so many episodes, Luffy was carrying Law, or Law was just like being out of action. I could tell that it was just really annoying him. But I guess it also meant that he could preserve his energy for the big fight with Dofi. I'm also liking the tension that's building with whether Law can be trusted just yet, because we don't know his motives and why he formed this alliance with Luffy and why he wants to take Dofi down so badly. We're also introduced to a new Admiral Isho, who is either just extremely lucky or just good at betting, I don't know, but his devil fruit power is insanely strong. The fact that his gravity power can force and pull a full-on asteroid into the Earth is just insane. I can't tell what his motives are yet, though. He seems to be on Dofi's side, maybe for the sake of like the Marines, I don't know, but also seems like he has an ulterior motive, so I'm interested to see the actions that he takes and how his character kind of fits into all of it in the end. In the first half, we're also introduced to the Tontattas, who are these little people that are extremely strong, but also very gullible. For some reason, they remind me of ants because ants can carry 10 to 50 times their own weight. That is a fun fact if you didn't know. Put that one in your fact book. But that's pretty cool that they kind of resemble ants in that way. Not the gullible part. I mean, I've never really spoken to an ant, so I wouldn't know if ants are gullible. Anyway, rambling on. So they actually have a pretty important part of the story. The fact that they're gullible makes for some hilarious interactions between all of them. There's the part where they first capture Robin and Usopp and they're getting all defensive about to attack Robin, but all of a sudden she says that she's not there to hurt them, and they respond like, "Oh, okay, that's great. We won't attack you then." But the best part of this is when Usopp manages to convince them that he is some sort of hero, and then it just absolutely spirals from there and he becomes their absolute savior. The Tontattas also reveal a lot about the state of Dressrosa, explaining their history of oppression under the Don Quixote rule and how they were freed by King Riku's rule. They have devised this massive mission to turn the toys back into humans so that it would start a revolution and hopefully end the oppression. And now they have Usopp, Frankie, and Robin involved. One moment that particularly stood out to me with all of this is when Frankie calls Luffy to give him an update and tells him that they're no longer sticking to the plan and he will fight with the Tontattas no matter what Luffy says. This, to me, really showed how, although they do follow Luffy's orders a lot of the time, each of the Straw Hats will stick up for what they think is right. They're not just sheep who follow orders and don't have any initiative, which I think Luffy really respects and is why he instinctively chose these people to be a part of his crew. Also why he trusts them so much and why they all work so well as a team. Okay, I have to talk about the toys. I feel like this is one of the darkest concepts in the entire series so far, and it's hidden under silly characters and bright colors. All of these amusing tones and fun parts start to unravel when we're introduced to the toy soldier, who later on becomes Kiros and Rebecca's dad. He reveals that all of the toys were once human and they are forced to obey certain rules, but the most horrendous part of it is that no one remembers who they are. Their own families, partners, children, everyone that they know has no recollection of them at all. It feels like a full-on psychological horror. The scene that plays when the toy soldier is explaining all of this, it encapsulates the psychological horror of it perfectly. There's this toy dog who's playing with a child, and it turns out that the dog was once the boy's father. He has no way to tell them who he is, and even if he tried, they wouldn't even remember. This is a literal nightmare. As the arc progresses, we learn that the humans were being turned into toys by one of the hierarchs, Sugar. I'll discuss a bit more about my thoughts on all of Dopey's family and the hierarchs, I think, in my next video, because I feel like they're going to go through a bit more of their story and I'll learn a bit more about them, especially during like the major fights. I feel like it'll be more fitting to discuss that in the second half. Although I do have to mention Senor Pink, because what the heck is that? The way that all of these women are just like idolizing him and fawning over him, but he just completely disregards and even disrespects them half the time. I can tell that this fight between him and Frankie is going to be a really good one. If anything, it's going to be hilarious watching those two battle and like talk to each other. It's like a contest of who is, I don't know, the macho man, the fancier man, but I feel like it's going to be a good one. I'm excited to see it. But to end off the first half of the Dressrosa arc, Usopp ended up pulling off the stop operation that the Tontattas were working on, and he took Sugar out, which means that all of the toys turned back into humans. This whole situation, I think, is one of my favorite aspects of the Dressrosa arc so far. From the very start, all of the Tontattas thought that Usopp was his savior because of all the lies that he was telling them to try and break free. Then when he manages to make Sugar pass out, unintentionally, mind you, in Usopp's fashion, all of the humans that were once toys and the Tontattas now start seeing Usopp as a god. That scene when Hyrudean held Usopp up in the air like he was Jesus on the cross and the light shone through in the hole in the the ceiling, perfectly hitting Usopp, and it made him look like a literal god. Although Usopp just always cowers away from a big fight, he's constantly just running away, he always pulls through in the end every single time. Like, we see that in Enies Lobby where he throws the key to Frankie, which ultimately saves Robin. And then when he manages to take out Perona in Thriller Bark and now Sugar, he manages to just pull through in some of the biggest cases and the biggest fights. A lot of the time unintentionally, but most of the time it's a strategic thing that he does, which is really interesting. Some of my favorite moments so far would have to be Bellamy making a surprise re-entrance, Bartolomeo just being like a complete fanboy over the Straw Hats, Rebecca's whole backstory and the revelation that her dad is the toy soldier, Usopp taking out Sugar and turning all the toys back into humans, and also the brooding, dark atmosphere of Dressrosa that is hidden by all its like bright aesthetics, bright colors, but it's like really there's something dark going on there. And also Law being at the center of the arc and finding out a bit more about him and a bit of his history with Dofi. I really liked that. If you're watching Dressrosa along with me, let me know your favorite moments so far. And if you have already watched Dressrosa, let me know how you felt at this point and some of your thoughts halfway through. Make sure to keep a lookout for part 2 of me going through the Dressrosa arc. I feel like it's just going to be absolutely crazy the next half. So make sure you keep a lookout for that. Otherwise, I hope that you all have a really great day, great night, whatever it is over there. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.